The People Who Gave Us the U.S. Constitution by Kristin Cashore. The Constitution is written. When the American Revolution ended, the United States had won its independence from Great Britain. The young nation still faced many challenges. The Articles of Confederation were the law in the United States. The Articles set up Congress as the only branch. The powers of Congress were very limited. For example, Congress could not tax the people. This meant that Congress did not have enough money to run the country. In 1787, delegates met at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. The delegates did not all agree about how to solve the problems of government. However, after many debates and compromises, they wrote the United States Constitution. The Constitution set up a strong government with three branches: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. It created a system of checks and balances so that no single branch of the government would become too powerful. Who were the people who worked together to bring us the Constitution? Read on to find out. George Washington. The delegates to the Constitutional Convention were lawyers, soldiers, farmers, business people, and merchants. More than half of them had fought in the Revolutionary War. Many of them had helped to write their own states' constitutions. One person, however, stood out as the leader: George Washington of Virginia. The entire country admired Washington. He had led the Americans to victory. Washington was the young nation's greatest hero. Washington did not want power. He wanted what was best for the people. Washington wanted to work for the good of the country. In 1787, Washington believed that the country needed a stronger government. The delegates all voted to make Washington the leader of the Constitutional Convention. They wanted a government that was strong but would still protect the rights of the people. They wanted a government that had the same qualities George Washington had. As the leader of the Constitutional Convention, Washington helped the delegates make compromises. James Madison. Virginia delegate James Madison came to the convention with a special plan for the nation. It was called the Virginia Plan. Under the Articles of Confederation, Congress was made up of only one part. The Virginia Plan suggested a Congress made up of two parts. Madison wanted three branches of government. He did not want any of the branches to be too strong. The delegates did not like everything in Madison's plan, but they agreed that the nation should have a strong government with three balanced branches. Madison spoke often at the convention. He helped with the wording of the Constitution and took notes on the debates. Benjamin Franklin. Pennsylvania delegate Benjamin Franklin was called the Sage of the Constitutional Convention. A sage is a wise person who is honored for his or her experience and judgment. At the age of 81, Franklin was the oldest delegate to the convention. He had been a writer, a scientist, an inventor, and a political leader. The delegates respected Franklin. There were many arguments and disagreements at the Constitutional Convention, but Franklin helped the delegates compromise. Like Washington and Madison, Franklin believed that the nation needed a strong national government. He was not happy with everything in the final Constitution, but he signed it anyway. Franklin asked the other delegates who were not happy with the Constitution to sign. He thought that the nation had a better chance if everyone worked together. Many of the delegates saw the wisdom of this and signed. Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton, a delegate from New York, believed that the nation needed a very strong government. He wanted the president and senators to serve for life terms. He also thought that state governments were not necessary and that all power should be held by the central government. Most of the delegates disagreed with Hamilton. The government that Hamilton wanted was too much like the British government. Hamilton was not totally happy with the Constitution. He was afraid that the new government would be too weak. Hamilton, however, put his own opinions aside and signed the Constitution. Hamilton did everything he could to support the Constitution. He wrote essays explaining the benefits of the new government. He asked the states to ratify the Constitution. Because he was brave enough to put his own opinions aside, Hamilton helped the Constitution to become law. Other important voices. Not every delegate wanted a strong government. George Mason of Virginia, for example, wanted the national government to stay weak. He worried that the president would become like a king. He thought that a strong government would take away the freedom of the states and the people. Thomas Jefferson believed in a strong government, but like Mason, Jefferson thought that the Constitution needed a Bill of Rights to protect the rights of the people. Jefferson was not at the Constitutional Convention, but he made sure that his opinions were known. Leaders realized that Congress would need to add a Bill of Rights as soon as possible. The Bill of Rights that became part of the Constitution would guarantee rights such as freedom of religion and freedom of speech. The larger states felt that they should have more representatives in Congress than the smaller states. The smaller states thought that every state should have the same number of representatives. Roger Sherman, a delegate from Connecticut, came up with a solution called the Great Compromise. The number of any state's representatives in the House of Representatives would depend on the size of the state. Each state, however, would have the same number of senators in the Senate. The delegates decided that this compromise was fair. For the good of the nation. On September 17, 1787, 39 of the 55 delegates to the Constitutional Convention signed the Constitution. Few of the signers agreed with everything that the Constitution said, but they did agree to work together for the good of the nation. The Constitution has guided our nation throughout our nation's history. We must thank the leaders who came together in the spirit of strength, liberty, cooperation, and compromise.